confrontation between Omni-Man and Invincible was a brutal battle between two titans. Invincible found himself in a hopeless situation when he came face to face with his father, who turned out to be much stronger. And the only thing that saved him then was Omniman's hesitation to deliver a fatal blow to his own son. However, as the plot develops, Invincible becomes stronger, and as he matures he gains a lot of experience throughout his life. This leads him to an encounter with a mysterious being from space that sends him back in time to face his father again. And in this timeline, the outcome of the battle changes dramatically, leading to the most unexpected consequences, both for Mark himself and for the entire universe. The whole story of Mark from the future and how his actions were able to influence the entire chain of events. So let's begin. The comic's events unfold at the moment when Thrag had just defeated the Beast. Coalition spies report that Thrag is seriously injured and can be finished off. Alan sends Invincible and his brother Oliver on this dangerous mission, and they head there with a fleet of ships. When Invincible arrived at the destination, he notices that the planet is completely empty and that Thrag himself and all his people have disappeared somewhere. A captured spy reveals that after the battle with the Beast, Thrag was attacked by a cosmic racer. A battle ensued between them and they disappeared somewhere. But where, nobody knows. Mark tells the alien that he's a terrible spy and that it will take a lot of time to comb the planet looking for Thrag's offspring. When Mark was exploring the planet, he stumbles upon a mysterious cave. However, locals warn him not to go there because according to legends, you can encounter an ancient curse that lives underground. Suddenly, an unknown force begins to pull Mark in, and he finds himself in a room, illuminated by a bright light coming from an alien. Mark reaches out to him and finds himself in the past on Earth. It was the very day when his powers awakened. However, he is 18 years old again. And going to school, he meets Eve, who says that he knows about her supernatural abilities and that she is a member of the teen team, and her secret identity is Adam Eve. Not understanding where he got this information, Eve restrains Mark and delivers him to the hero base, where Mark confesses that he came from the future. And as proof, he tells the truth about Robot, that he is a born mutant who sits in a laboratory remotely controlling a drone, and that in the future he will create a clone of himself. And no one can know about this except a person from the future. These words convince the Guardians of the Globe and they begin to believe him. And together they prevent the first crime that was to be committed by an evil teacher who wanted to turn his students into living bombs. And returning home, Mark sits down for dinner where he was supposed to confess to his parents about his awakened abilities. But knowing that after this Omni-Man would kill the Guardians of the Globe, he decides not to do it. However, he decides to save people in secret from his father. And that same night, he goes to the tailor for his hero costume. And all the following time, Mark, together with the Guardians, prevents crimes that should happen. And on one such day, Omni-Man recognizes his son. And he asks Mark why he didn't confess about this. Knowing what will happen next, Mark asks his father if he loves his family. Surprised, Nolan answers that he does, and then Mark asks him not to capture Earth and not to join the Viltrumite Empire. Not understanding how Mark learned about this, Nolan says he will never betray his people, and then they enter into battle. However, this time Mark decides not to fight with his father, and he lures Nolan to the Guardians of the Globe base, where he warns the heroes that Omni-Man wants to kill them. The Guardians try to stop him, but Omni-Man kills Immortal again, but still, as a result of the battle, the heroes defeat him, and Immortal survives with a giant hole in his chest. At this moment, Cecil appears from a portal along with Reanimatrons, who take Mark together with Omni-Man to some secret base. While in prison, Nolan confesses that he loves his family more than the Empire, and that he is ready to give up capturing Earth because he has reconsidered everything. Nolan is tormented by conscience for wanting to kill the Guardians of the Globe and that many people could have died if this battle had taken place. Just like last time, Alan confuses planets and comes to Earth, and Mark tells him about everything that happened and should happen in the future. And then Alan comes to Omniman's prison, where he doesn't understand how he could not have noticed before that Nolan is a Viltrumite because all two-eyed people look similar in the face. However, Alan still doesn't trust Nolan and doesn't believe in his repentance. However, Nolan says that he no longer has a choice, since the Empire will take revenge on him for refusing to carry out the mission. The next morning, Nolan flies away with Alan, and future Mark becomes the main defender of Earth, and he continues to save people, preventing crimes that should happen. First, together with the Guardians, they take out the Lizard's lair, and then arrest a mad scientist and prevent an alien invasion. In one of these battles, Mark catches Eve, and there is a spark of attraction between them. However, Rex asks Mark not to make advances because they are dating. Mark doesn't dare to tell Eve that in the future they will get married, since in this timeline Rex didn't cheat on Eve, and they continue to date. Mark begins to understand that in this timeline, his and Eve's fates diverge, converge and that they will not be together, which means their daughter Tara will never be born. And sitting in his room, Mark misses his family. And at this moment, the glowing alien that Mark met in the cave appears. The alien asks Mark why he is sad. After all, he saved many lives and prevented global disasters. But Mark says that he misses his wife and daughter and wants to go back. That in this timeline, he and Eve will never get married, and their daughter Tara will never be born. However, the alien replies that this is just one unborn person in exchange for thousands of lives saved, and that higher powers chose Mark for this mission because he can sacrifice his interests to save others. However, the higher powers give him a chance to make his choice independently, and if Mark wants, they will return him back to the cave at his temporal point of departure. However, the past will remain unchanged, and it turns out that many people will die. Mark chooses this option, and he asks the alien to send him back to the cave. The surprised alien says that they could not have foreseen this, and he sends Mark back, calling him a piece of shit. As soon as Mark was in the cave, he immediately flies to the surface, where he sees a broken fleet that collided with Thrag. Returning to Eve, Mark learns that he has been absent for 5 whole years and that everyone thought he died in the battle with Thrag. A grown-up Tara enters the room, and Mark promises that he will never leave her again, and then tells Eve about everything that happened to him, that he went back in time and could save many lives. However, they still died because he preferred his family. For this, his conscience torments him. However, Eve doesn't condemn him and says that he made the right choice when he returned to her. The next day, Mark comes to Alan, who is very happy to see him, and he says that the mission was failed and the fleet was destroyed. Oliver fought alone against Thrag and was badly injured. However, Oliver himself survived and was able to recover quickly. In the evening, Mark meets Oliver, who had time to grow a mustache, and Mark asks him for forgiveness for leaving him to fight alone against Thrag. Oliver forgives him and says that everything went fine, and thus ends the alternative timeline of Mark from the future, who returned to the past to save people, but still preferred to return to his family, whom he missed very much. Although Mark still had chances to marry Eve again, he returned because he missed his daughter. Well, on this note we will be ending. This alternate timeline leaves us with haunting questions. What would you sacrifice to protect the ones you love? Could you live with the consequences? Mark made his choice, but the weight of those unchosen lives will linger forever. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Invincible's darkest what if, smash that like button, subscribe for more comic breakdowns, and let me know in the comments, would you have made the same choice as Mark? Until next time, stay strong, heroes.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast. I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know